Welcome to my first stream of this year. Where have I been, you might ask? I have been reading scary stories. I've been here the whole time. It was you guys who went away. Just you guys. But I'm glad you're all back. I'm very happy to see you all again. And I have two delightful little stories for you tonight. My stories tonight are from Body Shocks, an exciting little group of stories edited by Ellen Datlow. Extreme Tales of Body Horror. That sounds fun, right? And our slightly longer story, but still pretty short story, is from Darker Masks by a lot of people. You may recognize some of them from, like, everywhere. Ray Bradbury is in so many different story collections forever. God, it is so nice to be back. Not that I ever went anywhere. You're the ones who were gone. We already went over this. But I have not read either of these stories. Well, I read one of them like a year ago, and I think I thought it was alright, if I remember correctly. I read a lot of scary stories, you might guess. And the other one I have not read before, the one I'm going to start with. So, guess we'll see if it's good. The first story is Black Neurology, a love story, by Richard Kadrey. Using my pull with an acquaintance at the city morgue, I convinced the attending medical examiner to let me watch your autopsy. He begins with a traditional Y incision, cutting 2 diagonals across your upper chest until they meet at your sternum, then a single, long, straight slice down to your crotch. He opens you with a crack, snapping ribs and connective tissues, laying you open and bare, more exposed than you've ever been in a lifetime of extreme exposures. I stand quietly, a little behind the examiner, clicking away with the cheap little pocket camera I bought on the way over. This examiner is a true professional, experienced and respected for both his precision and the speed of his work. But now that he's opened you, he's just standing there, looking down, his head craning slowly up and down the length of you. He reaches forward and pushes a finger into your abdomen, scooping out what he finds and pressing it quizzically between his fingertips. Your body appears to be packed with a pinkish yellowing modeling clay. The examiner makes a face and scoops out more with his hands, trying to find his way through the muck to your organs. Without warning, he lets out a little yelp and pulls back his hands. He says that he felt something move inside you. Using forceps, he reaches tentatively into you and pulls something free, a hissing rattlesnake. After disposing of the creature in the incinerator, he examines your insides further, this time using scissors and a metal probe. He soon hits a pocket of what looks like black tar. It oozes up through the clay, darkening it. The examiner's probe drags new things from your gut. Rosaries, straight razors, old bottles of laudanum and arsenic. He finds your baby teeth, leather wrist restraints, the hand-stitched belt your daddy used on you when you needed discipline. With his forceps, the examiner digs into the thick clay and pulls out your heart. Instead of a fist of muscle, What he holds in the forceps is a glowing red coal, spouting a steady flame from the top and wrapped with barbed wire like a miniature crown of thorns. He turns and looks at me, holding up the glowing coal, as if I might have an explanation. I shrug and snap a picture. "What's that?" I ask, pointing at your body. The examiner turns to look, and I reach around from behind, slicing his throat from the jugular to the carotid artery in one smooth motion, using the scalpel I stole from his instrument tray. He burbles once, and I let him drop, bleeding into the cavity from which he'd extracted your burning heart. Snapping another quick photo, I run my hands down your throat, across the open halves of your chest, along your legs, using my fingernails the way you liked. In the late 1990s, I read about new electronic scanning techniques that led to brain studies that revealed our minds and bodies are all utterly unique. The neural pathways that mean pain and discomfort for some equal pleasure and contentment for others. The chemical compositions of our cerebral and spinal fluids can vary widely from person to person. Perversion to perversion. Our desires are defined by our brains, and our bodies are shaped by our desires. As William Blake once said, those who restrain desire do so because theirs is weak enough to be restrained. The unrestrained, I wonder, watching the last of the medical examiner drain into you. Who knows everything the unrestrained are capable of? There's a bubbling in the bloody clay. I touch you more insistently now. Your lips, your thighs, your genitals. Something rises from the muck. A hand, then an arm, another hand beside them. I work you harder, and your body begins to convulse in orgasm. You pull free from the clay and out of your corpse, covered in blood and muck like an infant. You're reborn from your own body, this stranger's body, and our overwhelming desire. You rise up to your knees, breathe into your new lungs, and open your mouth, searching for your voice. Finding it, you touch my cheek and say, "I told you I'd never leave you." I wrap you in the examiner's lab coat and take you home. And there is, of course, a beautiful illustration. Isn't it sweet? I enjoy when intimacy is depicted in a very bloody fashion. Speaking of which, did any of you see the movie Repo Man? The kind of not great, but also really awesome sci-fi movie. If you get to the end of it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyways. On to our next story. Read for an audience that I don't know if you exist, because I can't look at my stream. I sometimes get angry or frustrated easily, much like the character in our next story. You're not entirely like this character, as far as you know. Love, Hate, and the Beautiful Junkyard Sea by Mort Castle. It wasn't until the 3rd grade I learned I could love. It was in 3rd grade I met Carolyn Pitts. Before that, seems to me all I did was hate. I had reason. As everyone in Harlanville knew, and let me know, I was trash. The Deweys were so low down you couldn't go lower if you dug straight to China and kept on going. My daddy was skinny, slit-eyed, and silent except in his drunken, grunt-shouting, crazy fits that set him to beating on my mother or me. Maybe it was the dark and the dust of the coal mine. He worked old Ben number 3. That got inside him, poisoned him to turn him mean like that. My mother might have tried to be a good mama. I don't know, but by the time I was able to think anything about it, she must have just given up. In a day, she never said more than 10 words to me, sometimes in a week. Maybe she didn't say 10 words to me. At night, she cried an awful lot. I think that's what I mostly remember about Mama, her crying that way. So trash, no account trash, bad as any, and worse than most you find in southern Illinois. That's what I was. And if you're trash, you start out hating yourself and your folks, and hating the God who made you trash and plans to keep you that way. But soon, you get so hate-filled, you have to let it out, or just burst. And so, I get to hating other people. I hated kids who came to school in nice clothes, with a different shirt every day. The kids who had Bugs Bunny lunch boxes, with 2 sandwiches on bread so white, it made me think of hospitals. The kid who lost teeth and got quarters from a tooth fairy. The kids whose daddies never got drunk and always took them on vacations to Starved Rock State Park. Or way far away, like Disneyland or the Grand Canyon. I hated all the mamas up at the pay laundry every Monday morning, washing the clothes so clean for their families. I hated Mr. Mueller at the Texaco, who always told me, "Take a hike, Bradford Dewey," or "Boy, jump in a hole and pull it in after you," when I wanted to watch cars go up on the grease rack. I hated Mr. Aikenberry, the postmaster. Mr. Aikenberry had that wheeze-tingly smell of Old Spice on him. What my daddy smelled like was whiskey and wickedness. If you hate somebody, you want to hurt him. And I thought of hateful, hurting things happening to all the people I hated. There wasn't a one in Harlanville I didn't set my mind on and a wish picture for. A hate-hurt picture that left them busted up, bleeding, and dead. I imagined a monster, big as an Oldsmobile, grabbing up Rodney Carlisle, his father owned the hardware store on the square, and ripping off his arms and legs, a snake as long as the Mississippi River, swallowing Claire Bobbitt, Patty Marcel, Edith Hebb, all the girls who used to tease me, and an invisible vampire ripping the throats out of all the teachers at McKinley School. I will attempt to consume apple pie juice without choking. I will attempt to drink a bottle cap, apparently. Oh, it's really good when you don't breathe it. A Beetlejuice Fanta, Taste of Michael Keaton, and apple pie. You might think maybe that I really did try to hurt people. I mean, use my hands, punch them in the nose, or fling stones at them, or hit them on the head with a ball, bat, or something like that. But that is not so. Never in my whole life have I done that kind of hurt to anyone. What I did was find another way to get to people. What I did was, I started lying. It's this way. You tell someone the truth. It means you trust them. It's like you got something you like them enough to share with them. It doesn't have to be an important piece of truth either. It can be a little nothing. I went to the show last night, and that was one fine picture they had, or it was a really pretty day, or my cat had kittens, or anything at all. You tell someone the truth, it's just about the same as liking them. So when you lie to a person, it's because you got no use for them. You hate their guts, and what makes it really so fine is you're doing it without ever having to flat out say what you feel. So I lied my head off. I told little lies, like my Uncle Everett sent me $5 because I was his favorite nephew, and I did so have a wonderful birthday gift for Rodney Carlisle, but I wasn't giving it to him because he didn't ask me to his birthday party. And I told monster whopper lies, some of them super crazy, like I was just adopted by the Deweys, but my real parents are Hollywood movie stars. Or once I saw a ghost who had this big red butt like a baboon. Or I had to kill this 300-pound wolf with just my bare hands, and it attacked me out at the junkyard. I didn't really fool anyone with my lies, you know. That wasn't what I was trying to do. All in all, I'd say Miss Crydell, the third-grade teacher, was right when she used to say, "Bradford, you are a hateful little liar." But all that changed when Carolyn Pitts came and showed me the beautiful Junkyard Sea. You've probably had to do it yourself, I bet. Stand in front of the whole class and tell who you are, and all because you're the new kid. And you're supposed to be making friends right off. It was the first week in May, already too hot and too damp. An oily spring like you get in southern Illinois. The new girl up by Miss Crydell's desk was Carolyn. She had this peepy voice about one squeak lower than Minnie Mouse. Her eyes and hair were the same shade of black, and she was wearing the blue and dark green plaid dress. Carolyn Pitts didn't say much except her name, and that she lived on Elms Court Lane. But in a town the size of Harlanville, everyone knew most everything about her a week before she'd even moved in. Her daddy was a doctor, and he was going to work at the county hospital, and her mama was dead. Well, Carolyn Pitts wasn't anything to me, not yet. I went back to drilling a hole in my desktop with my yellow pencil. Some kids do that sort of a thing without even thinking about it. Just something to do. But with me, well, I could feel hate running down my arm into the grinding pencil. And all the time I was doing that, I was mashing my back teeth together, if you know what I mean. It was a week later I talked to Carolyn Pitts for the first time. It was 10 o'clock. The big regulator clock up near the flag ticking off the long, hot, and miserable seconds. And that was arithmetic period. So, like always, Miss Crydell asked who didn't do the homework, and then she started right in on me first. Of course, Bradford Dewey. Do you have the fractions? No, ma'am. Please stand, Bradford, and stop mumbling. It would help, too, if you were to take that surly look off your face. Yes, ma'am. Didn't you do the homework? I actually had tried to do it. But when I was working at the kitchen table, my daddy came up and popped me right alongside the head for no reason, except he felt like it. So I lit out of the house. Not that I was going to tell Miss Crydell any such thing. Ma'am, I did so do the homework. I don't have it, is all. Why is that? Said Miss Crydell. I felt this good one, a real twisty lie getting bigger, working its way out of me. What it was, see, I was on the way to school, and I had my fractions, and the next thing I knew, the scarlets come up all around me, and that's how I lost my homework. The scarlets? Said Miss Crydell. You just know the kind of face she was making when she said that. Please tell us about the scarlets. There was a laugh from the first row, and someone echoing at a row over. But Miss Crydell gave the classroom her special poison radiation eyes, and it got real quiet, real quick. I said, well, the scarlets aren't all that big, no bigger than puppies, but they are plenty mean, and there's a lot of them around every time it gets to be spring. Oh, is that so? Miss Crydell said. Yes, ma'am. I was running away from the scarlets so they wouldn't get me. Then I dropped my homework. I couldn't go back to get it, could I? See, the scarlets have pointy tails with a stinger on them, and if they sting you, you swell up and turn blue and you die. And when you're dead, the scarlets eat you up. They eat you. I was really running with it now. They start on your face. They bite your eyes first thing. That will be enough, Bradford. I guess for a scarlet, your eye is kind of like a real tasty grape. It goes pop when they bite down on it. Enough. I stop right there. Miss Crydell says, You are a liar, Bradford, and I am sick and tired of your lies. You'll stay after school and write, 'I promise to tell the truth,' 500 times. I sat down, thinking how much 500 was, how much I hated Miss Crydell, and how bad my hand was going to feel when I finished writing all that rubbish. The day went on. It was strange, but every time I happened to look around the room, there was Carolyn Pitts looking at me with those black eyes big as the wolf's in Little Red Riding Hood. I didn't know what to make of that. I did not know if I liked it or not, or what. After school, I wrote and wrote and wrote, each, I promised to tell the truth, sloppier than the one before it. Miss Crydell didn't take her eyes off me either, so I couldn't do it in columns, which is a lot easier with my hand feeling like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Miss Crydell finally let me go. I cut the back of the school through the playground to take the long way home. I heard this click, like someone running on gravel, and then she was calling my name. Somehow I knew it was her right off, so I stopped and turned around. She ran up to me, and before I could say anything, she said, "You can see things, can't you?" Not knowing what to make of that, I said, "Uh-huh." "See things," she says. I figured Carolyn Pitts had hung around school just to tease me and pick at me the way Claire Bobbitt, Patty Marcel, and Edith Hebb always did, and so I answered kind of nasty, "Sure can." I pointed over at the monkey bars. "You go hang by your knees over there, and I can see your underpants. What do you think about that?" Carolyn said, "You can see things other people don't, can't you, Bradford? Like the Skirlets." Then Carolyn started talking real quiet, like she was in church or something. "Bradford, I can see things. All kinds of things, too. I can see tiny people living under sunflowers, and I can see giants jumping from cloud to cloud, and bugs that fly in moonlight and spell out your name on their wings. And once I saw a stone in the sunshine, and it was trying to turn itself into apple jelly." I said, "What are you talking about?" "Both of us. We can see things, so that means we ought to be friends." I said, "No sense to what you're talking, Carolyn. I can't see anything much. Nothing like what you're saying. And if you can, then you sound crazy." Carolyn said, "I can't tell my daddy about what I see, because he says it's only pretend, and I'm too old to pretend that way. I used to tell Mama, before she died. She said I had imagination, and sometimes, when there was nothing worth seeing in the whole world, all you had was your imagination. When Mama was so sick, dying, I guess it seems like it rained every day. I used to sit with her, and we'd look out the window, and every day, Bradford, every day, I could see a rainbow. It had 12 colors. That rainbow, colors like you don't see in a plain old rainbow. I used to tell Mama how the sun made the colors change from second to second. Mama said that was our rainbow. That was the rainbow over the graveyard the day she was buried. It wasn't even raining, but I looked up and there it was. Where it bent and disappeared on the other side of the world, I saw Mama, and she was waving to me." I don't know," I said. "I don't know anything about that, or rainbows." "Bradford," Carolyn said, "there's something I want to show you. Something beautiful. Can I?" "I guess," I said. I'm not a bit sorry about saying that. I haven't been since the word slid off my lips, but in all these years gone by, I sure have asked myself why I didn't tell Carolyn to just go on and get lost. Maybe the reason is, I was small and dirty, and my whole life was small and dirty, but packed inside me was this big hate, and hate is such an ugly thing. So I guess I was tired of all that ugly, and there was something inside me too, that was ready to be shown something beautiful. Oh, not that I believed Carolyn had a thing to show me. To tell the truth, I thought she was off some, and we were talking more than a little, but I did go with her, all the way past the edge of town, through Needmeyer's meadow, and then along the railroad tracks until we came to the curve. And there, by the rusted steel building that I guess the railroad must have once had use for but didn't anymore, there was the old junkyard. It wasn't the kind of business junkyard where you go to sell your falling apart car. It was an acre or so where everybody dumped the trash that wouldn't burn and was too big for garbage men to haul off. It was all useless, twisted garbage. A three-legged wringer washer with the wires sticking out at the bottom, and a refrigerator with the basket coil on top, and an old trunk without a lid like maybe a sailor once had, and a steam radiator, and a bathtub, and hundreds of pipes, and a couple of shells of cars, thousands of tin cans. Everywhere you looked were hills and mountains of steel and glass and plastic. All kinds of trash that came from you didn't know what stuff. Flies swarmed in, bunches like black cyclones. And over it all, hanging so stink-heavy you could see it, was the terrible smell. And that was what Carolyn Pitts had to show me. Not more than a spit away, a rat peeked from under a torn square of pink linoleum, its nasty whiskers quivering. I chucked a stone at it. I told Carolyn Pitts maybe she thought she was funny, but I didn't think she was funny, and I started to run off. I didn't get a step before she had my elbow. "Bradford, can't you see it?" "It's the junkyard, that's all." "It's the sea, Bradford. It's the beautiful junkyard sea. You have to look at it the right way. You have to want to see how beautiful it is. Please look. Please look, Bradford." Then Carolyn Pitts started talking to me in this whispery voice that seemed to crawl from my ear right into my brain. "Look at the water. Can't you see how blue and green it is? See the waves? The water goes on forever and sends the waves to us from beyond nowhere. The waves gentle as night breeze, rippling tiny hills rolling in to wash against the diamond-dotted golden sands where we stand. And a seagull. Its wings are white fire cutting through layered blue sky, its eyes magic black. And way out there at the horizon line, where water and sky are one, a whale. Whales, placid giants, their strange squeaking pips and rumbles unearthly and eternal. "Bradford," Carolyn said, "can you see it? Can you see the beautiful junkyard sea?" "No," I said, and that was the truth. But in the moment before I said it, I think I almost saw it. It was like someone had painted a picture of the junkyard on an old bed sheet, and the wind catching the sheet as it hung on a line was making everything ripple and change before my eyes. It was because I almost saw it, and because, I know now, there was a fierce want in me to see it. I came back to the junkyard day after day with Carolyn Pitts. On a Wednesday in the afternoon, a week after school let out, it happened. I saw the beautiful junkyard sea. The forever waters, sunlight slanting, cutting through foam and fathom upon fathom, then diminishing, vanishing into the ever-night depths. The seagulls, winged arrows, cutting random arcs over the rippling waves. A dolphin bursts from the sea, bejeweled droplets in glory. Another dolphin, another and another, an explosion of dolphins, explosions of joy. Far off, a beckoning atoll, a palm tree island. Far off, a coral reef, living land. Far off, the promise of magic, the assurance that a lie is only a dream, and that dreams are true. Good things you do not have to learn or practice love. Good thing you do not have to learn or practice love, that it just happens. In the fine sea spray, in the clean mist of air and salt water, in the best moment of my life, I kissed Carolyn Pitts on the lips. I told her I loved her, and I loved the beautiful junkyard sea. Every day that summer, Carolyn and I visited the beautiful junkyard sea. It was always there for us. Then in late August, she told me she was moving. Her family was joining the staff of a hospital in Seattle. She told me she cried when her daddy told her about it. She said I said I would always love her. Said she would always love me. She said she would always love me. But what about the beautiful Junkyard Sea? I asked her. It will always be ours, she said. It will always be here for us. She promised to write, to give me her address once they were settled in Seattle. We would keep on loving each other, and when we grew up, we'd get married and be together forever. The next week she moved. Months and then years went by, and there was no letter. But I had the beautiful Junkyard Sea. And this is the truth. I never stopped loving Carolyn Pitts or believing she would return. She did. I was 22 years old. When I was 12, my daddy got drunk and drove the car into a tree and killed himself. My mama did not cry when he was buried. She said she had already used up all the tears my daddy was entitled to. With my father's minor benefits and insurance and no money going out on whiskey, Mom and I got by. I scraped through high school. Pretty bad grades, but I learned in shop class that I did have a way with engines. Pop the hood and hand me a wrench. Chances were good to better yet that I could fix any problem there was. And so I was working at Mueller's Texaco. On a sunny day in late April, Carolyn Pitts drove her white LTD up to the regular pump and asked me to fill it up, check the oil, battery, and transmission fluid. I stooped over. I just kind of stood there by the open car window, jaw hanging like a moron. There was a question in Carolyn Pitts' big eyes for a second, and then she knew. It's Bradford, right? Yes, I said. You've changed so much. I guess you have too, I said. That was probably the right thing to say, but to tell the truth, she hadn't done that much changing. It was like she was still the kid she had been, but only bigger. Growing up's a strange thing, Carolyn said. You came back, Carolyn, I said. She gave me another funny look, and then she laughed. I guess I have. I work out of Chicago. I'm in advertising, and I was on my way to St. Louis, and well, I needed gas, so I didn't even think about it. I just pulled off I-57, and here I am. You came back for the beautiful Junkyard Sea, I said. Uh-huh, Carolyn Pitts said. Huh? It's something most women just can't say right, and it bothered me to hear her say it. She laughed again. Oh, I get it. I remember. The beautiful Junkyard Sea. That was some game we had. I guess we both of us had pretty wild imaginations. It was no game, Carolyn. It isn't. Well, I don't know. She tapped her fingers on the steering wheel, looked through the windshield. Could you fill it up, please? Do you have a restroom? I told her inside. I filled the tank. Everything checked out under the hood. When she came back a minute or two later, I said, maybe we could talk just a little, Carolyn. It's been a long time, and we used to be such good friends. We used to be special friends. She took a quick look at her wristwatch. Then in her eyes I saw something like what used to be there so many years ago. We were, weren't we? She said. Maybe a quick cup of coffee or something. Is there someplace we could go? Sure, I said. I know the place. Just let me tell Mueller I'll be gone a while. I drove her LTD, told her she had gone to college. She told me she'd gone to college, Washington State, majored in business. She told me she and a guy, I forget his name, were getting serious about one another, thinking about getting engaged. She told me she hoped to be moving up in advertising to become an accountant executive in another year or so. When we got out past the town limits, she said, Bradford, where are you taking us? You know, I said. Bradford? I don't know what's going on. What are you doing? You're acting strange. I heard it in her voice. She was frightened. She didn't have to be frightened, is what I thought. She'd understand as soon as she saw it. There's something I want to show you, I told her, and I drove to the junkyard. She didn't want to get out of the car. She was scared. She said, "Bradford, don't hurt me." "I could never hurt you, Carolyn," I said. I took her arm. I could feel how stiff she was holding herself, like her spine was steel. "Here it is," I said. "Here we are." We stood on the sun-washed shore of the beautiful Junkyard Sea. She jerked like she wanted to pull away from me, but I held her arm even tighter. "I don't know what you want, Bradford. What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do?" "What do you see, Carolyn?" I asked. I don't see anything, Bradford." "Don't say that, Carolyn. I love you." What I was thinking then was, "Don't make me hate you. Please, please don't." "Bradford, I can't see what isn't there. This is a junkyard. That's all it is. It's ugly, and it stinks. It's a junkyard, please." They never found Carolyn Pitts. I left her car out there, walked back to town. The police did have questions, of course, since I was the last person to see her, but like I said, I know how to lie. And so I made up a few little lies and one or two big ones, and took care of the police. All these years, I haven't gone back to the beautiful Junkyard Sea. Maybe I never will. But I cannot forget, won't ever forget, and I don't think I want to forget how Carolyn looked when the waters turned black and churning, and lightning shattered the sky, and the seagulls shrieked, and the fins of sharks circled and circled, and the first tentacle whipped out of the foam and hooked her leg, and another shot out, circled her waist, and then one more across her face, choking off her screams, as she was dragged toward that thing rising in the angry water, that great gray-green puffy bag that was its head, yellow eyes shining hungrily, the corn-colored curved beak clattering as it dragged her deeper and deeper, and then she disappeared, and there was blood on the water. And that was all until at last the sun shone, and all was quiet in the beautiful Junkyard Sea. Well, I hope this stream actually streamed, since I didn't see it. I hope you enjoyed all of our beautiful imaginative tales and their interesting imagery. That's all for tonight, and I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will be continuing to do these. The next stream will be late Friday night, sometime after midnight again, and